Hello, my name is Jordan Clark, and I'm going to be talking to you today about macropods, specifically the red kangaroo and the Bennet wallaby, or the red-necked wallaby. These animals are considered macropods based on their very large feet. The word macropod in Latin means big feet, macro meaning big and pod meaning feet. These animals have many similarities and also a few differences that I'm going to dive into a little bit later. But first, I'm going to talk about their general anatomy. Kangaroos are very well known for their strong legs. They are able to kick with a force that is strong enough to break our femurs, or human femurs specifically, which is very strong since it is our strongest bone in our body. When they kick, they actually rest all of their weight on their tail, thus making their tail very, very strong. It is basically pure muscle because their tail has to hold up their whole body weight, which can range anywhere in between 80 to 200 pounds as an adult, specifically for the red kangaroos. The red kangaroos are the largest species of kangaroos out in Australia. The females average around 60 to 100 pounds versus the males can get up to 200 pounds. Height-wise, the females will be about 4 feet tall. The males will be up to 6 feet tall. So there is a very large difference between females and males. However, they both have the very, very strong tails that are able to hold their whole weight. You will also notice that they do have these front paws as well. They are actually very dexterous, so they are able to grab things with their front paws. However, they are primarily used to dig. They will dig in the sand to provide a cooler area to lay down, or they will use the paws to grab things like food, like branches, or other items that they're trying to eat. These animals are herbivores, so they only have teeth that are used for crushing, which is similar to our molars. These animals also have a great sense of hearing. Their hearing is, they are able to move their ears back and forth, kind of like a horse, and they are trying to figure out which direction the sound is coming from. This does make them very skittish, so if there is a loud noise, they typically run away. They do not stay there, like many other wild animals. But the last thing I will touch on is their anatomy when it comes to reproduction. These are one of the most unique animals when it comes to reproduction because they are marsupials. So they reproduce via a pouch. Only the females have pouches, not the males, so that is one way that you are able to tell the difference between female and male if you have two kangaroos of similar size. But the females reproduce via pouches, and how that works very basically is the baby kangaroo is called a joey. It is born outside of the pouch after a 30-day period. After this 30-day gestation period, it's born out the size of about a jelly bean, which is very teeny tiny. It's also the size of your pinky nail. So it's very tiny. It is born blind and hairless. And then the baby will follow a scent trail that the mom has licked up to her pouch so that the baby will climb up into the pouch. When the baby is in the pouch, it will latch onto a teat in order to feed. It will stay in the pouch for about 6 months at least, and then it'll start to venture in and out of the pouch, coming back in to feed, coming back in when it's cold, and eventually it'll be weaned off to eat other foods similar to the mom, like grasses and other leaves. Now, the unique thing about kangaroos and their pouches and how they reproduce is kangaroos are actually capable of pausing their pregnancies. So since they have a 30-day gestation period, they could just keep reproducing. However, if they were to do that, they would not have room in the pouch for the next offspring. They can really only grow one offspring at a time in the pouch. It's not that spacious to have two. That's why twins are very, very rare. They usually just have one baby at a time. And so in order to solve this problem, the kangaroo will pause its pregnancy until the next baby kangaroo, like this joey, is ready to be outside on its own, or at least be outside of the pouch and only occasionally feeding from the mom. The moms do have two teats in order to provide for what I would call a toddler joey that's living outside, but still feeding from the mom, and to also provide milk for the newborn baby that needs to stay inside the pouch at all times. But that is the uniqueness of kangaroo reproduction. So they really take the term breed like rabbits to heart. They can reproduce all the time, very, very often. To talk about a little about the differences between our kangaroos and red-necked wallabies, first I will list the similarities. They're both macropods, so they both have those large feet, they both have very muscular tails, they both have the dexterous hands. They both are herbivores. They will eat grasses, leaves, basically anything green that they can reach. They both have the very good sense of hearing as well. They also both have the pouches, and they both reproduce this same similar way. They're actually so similar and live in the same family, so they are capable of reproducing with each other. And if it works out, it is called a wallaroo. However, there are multiple differences as well. So it's hard to tell from these pictures. However, size is one of the main differences between a kangaroo and a wallaby. Wallabies will max out around 3 feet tall, 2.5, 3 feet, and overall are around under 50 pounds when they are full adult males. Like I already mentioned, the kangaroo males, specifically the red kangaroo, since they are the largest, can be 6 feet tall and up to 200 pounds. So about 4 wallabies equals a kangaroo. The next thing that you might see, especially in these pictures, even though the lighting is not the best, the red-necked wallabies are a different color than the red kangaroos. The red-necked wallabies have a darker coat. They have dark gray, dark brown for the majority of their fur. And then the kangaroos have a lighter brown and a lighter gray coloring. In some lightings, their brown even looks red, which is where they get their name. The next thing I like to point out, if you stare really closely at them, you will see that the wallaby has a pointy snout versus the kangaroo has a boxy snout. That is another sure way to tell a wallaby and kangaroo apart. Now, one of the last differences I will mention is their social behaviors. So wallabies tend to be a more solitary creature, but you're most likely to find them on their own, not necessarily in a group. Kangaroos are a social animal. They tend to live in a group. A group of kangaroos is called a mob, and it typically consists of one male kangaroo with multiple females. This is actually where you will see most of the videos online about kangaroos. Most of the videos consist of kangaroos either punching, wrestling, kicking, things like that. And that is typically a male being defensive of its territory or its group of girls. It'll do this up against other male kangaroos so that they compete for who is the best male, who's top guy, and deserves all the ladies' attention. The male kangaroos are strong enough to beat each other up pretty well. However, they are not an aggressive animal. I like to describe them very similar to white-tailed deer around here in northern Kentucky. White-tailed deer, you don't necessarily want to approach a buck. It could also be defensive of its territory or its does that are following it around. Same thing, you're not going to want to approach a male kangaroo if you travel to Australia. However, if you were to approach a female kangaroo, you're less likely to get aggression back because they are a little more docile than the males. They're not going to be defending their territory. Not to say you should, but there's a better chance that you're not going to get hurt. The last thing I'll mention about our kangaroos is their conservation efforts that are being made out in Australia. Since there are no native kangaroos in the Americas, no invasive species quite yet. I've only heard of invasive species of wallabies actually in Europe and New Zealand. But all these kangaroos and the wallabies are native to Australia. Some of their predators include natural predators being dingoes and eagles. These are mainly predators when the kangaroos are babies, when they're joeys. They will be picked up by eagles because they're so tiny when they're born and even when they're growing. And then dingoes are similar to a coyote and can also pick them up. However, once they're full grown, they don't have a lot of natural predators. If any animal is to come up to them acting like a predator, they are actually capable of drowning it in the water. Yes, kangaroos can swim and can drown their predators if they need to, or just swim across whatever body of water to get away from said predators. However, one of their main predators is actually people. People will hunt kangaroo. There is such thing as kangaroo meat, but they also mainly get hit by cars, unfortunately. Now, when this happens and a kangaroo is found on the side of the road, a lot of organizations nowadays in Australia will look at these kangaroos and see, especially if it's a female, if there is a joey inside of the pouch. These pouches are so protected, they are actually a muscle that can contract to keep the joey nice and close to the mom to basically brace it for impact. So they naturally do this when they're hopping, because the hopping is very bouncy, and so the joey doesn't want to be bouncing around in there. And so they were designed with having a muscle to keep them nice and close, to not injure the joey that way. This also is helpful for when they are hit by cars. Again, with the impact, you don't want the joey bouncing around. And so oftentimes the joey survives if it's found close enough to when the mom was hit, even if the mom passes away. So these organizations, one being the Australia Zoo, will actually take in the joey and raise it up to be a full adult. And at that point, typically they can't be released into the wild. However, they can be put in zoos and can be advocates for their species. And so that is my talk about macropods. They are very unique animals. The kangaroos and wallabies are just two of the main ones, and there are many different species of kangaroos and wallabies out there. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day.